Hello, Cannabuddies. Welcome to the Cannabis Man podcast. Thank you for clicking on the show. I am Don Kleppen, and I'm recording this on a Friday, and it's a very happy Friday, this December 2nd, because President Joe Biden has just signed into law a cannabis research bill, the very first piece of cannabis reform federal legislation signed by a sitting president. It is an historic day, and I just wanted to get out and talk a little about what this might mean going forward. So let's get into this abbreviated 33rd episode of the Cannabis Man podcast. Yeah, and let's kick off the episode with the News Joint wrap. This is the wrap-up of news stories and events related to cannabis in and around Illinois, brought to you by IllinoisNewsJoint.com. Think of it as the joint you can hit for all your Illinois cannabis news and reviews. Let's start with Erin A. Johnson has been appointed to Cannabis Regulation Oversight Officer. This is in less than a year. The Cannabis Regulation Oversight Office has appointed its second officer. Governor Pritzker announcing recently that Erin A. Johnson, E-R-I-N, is set to serve as Illinois' Cannabis Regulation Oversight Officer. She replaces Danielle Perry, who previously served as the CROO. The appointment awaits confirmation in the Illinois Senate. The Office of Cannabis Regulation Oversight in Illinois is part of the Department of Financial and Professional Regulation, IDFPR. I bring them up almost weekly on the News Joint wrap here. They're responsible, this Cannabis Regulation Oversight Office is responsible for coordinating with numerous state agencies to direct the regulation and taxation of Illinois' cannabis industry. The work's done to ensure Illinois' social equity goals are met through expungements, community reinvestment, and the diversification of the state's cannabis industry. So, welcome to the Cannabis Regulation Oversight Office, Erin A. Johnson. And an event coming up soon. A new business based out of Irving Park, Can-O Comedy, provides cannabis educational content and comedic entertainment by way of stand-up comedy. Its aim is to provide good-natured fun by bringing adult cannabis users and advocates of all ages together for a discussion and Q&A of cannabis educational topics. Discussion will be accompanied by food from a local Chicago restaurant, followed alongside a stand-up comedic act. Can-O Comedy's mission is to bring awareness to the indigenous communities of the Americas and to provide aid to foster children of Illinois. Stoner Natalie hopes to use her brand as a way to support and make others aware of what's happening to the indigenous community and in the cannabis community. And so Can-O Comedy's first event, an Indigenous Christmas, is scheduled for December 21st. Stoner Natalie and Can-O Comedy can be found on Facebook or Instagram at Stoner_Nat and at Twitter at Stoner Natalie, Nataly. And as always, you can find out more cannabis-friendly events and check out any news headlines, stories related to cannabis in and around Illinois, all at IllinoisNewsJoint.com. And now for the news of the day. President Biden signs cannabis research bill, an historic first for federal cannabis reform. I am going off of an article here from the publication Marijuana Moment. They do great work at Marijuana Moment, but unfortunately never want to come on the show. Yeah, they do some great work at Marijuana Moment. My only issue with it is the moniker, the name of the paper here, Marijuana Moment. As I've mentioned on the show several times before, listener, I am not a fan of the word marijuana. I advocate that it's a dirty word and we should stop using it. And I prefer cannabis. It's why I named the show that way. And as such, I am going to be swapping every use of the word marijuana in this article. I'm going to be editorializing and replacing it with cannabis because it's my show and that's what I get to do. So President Joe Biden officially signed a cannabis research bill into law, making history by enacting the first piece of standalone federal cannabis reform legislation in in U.S. history. This is a bill that cleared the House of Representatives in April and cleared the Senate last month in November, and President Biden signed it today that I'm recording this, December 2nd, Friday. The law gives U.S. Attorney General 60 days to either approve a given application or request more information from the cannabis research applicant. It also creates a more efficient pathway for researchers who request larger quantities of cannabis. The president remains opposed, though, and I thought this was a key line here. The president remains opposed to federal cannabis legalization. So that's something to keep in mind. As exciting as this is, and believe me, this is exciting. More research, fewer obstacles in the way of this research being done for cannabis. Very exciting stuff. And I look forward to all the studies that are going to get done because of this bill being signed. I look forward to speaking with those guests who do the studies and finding out directly from them what they're learning. I love that. This is right down my alleyway. I'm very happy about it. But that being said, it's important to remember that President Biden is still opposed to federal cannabis legalization. And that is something that is the gold standard. That is basically the home run. That's the ball that we're keeping our eye on. There's a lot of steps between there and here. There's a lot of steps before we get there, and one of those steps is this one, this cannabis research bill. This is huge. And there are smaller steps that President Biden campaigned on, more modest cannabis reforms like promoting research, decriminalization, and rescheduling cannabis under the Controlled Substances Act. So that's that point of removing it from the Schedule 1 status that I've mentioned on the show many times. That also is going to break down a lot of doors, move a lot of obstacles out of the way, from businesses being able to use the banking system, from universities getting federal grant money to do more studies, to have access to more cannabis to utilize in those studies. This is great stuff, and these are the kind of in-between steps that we're talking about, getting from prohibition, where we've been, to federal legalization. There are many steps between here and there, but it's an exciting day, an historic day. And we are going to start seeing now next year, 2023, look out. I will share with you all the new research projects that are coming from this exact bill signing. As the way is cleared for more research to be done because of this, I'm going to be speaking with those experts on the show. And on a similar note, senators have also now filed a bill to get the country ready for cannabis legislation federally amid heightened reform talks. So this is an article that actually came out on Thursday of this week, December 1st. And the senators, John Hickenlooper of Colorado, he formally filed December 1st an announced bill to set the country up for federal cannabis legalization. The timing of the introduction is meant to coincide roughly with the 10-year anniversary of Colorado's vote to legalize adult use cannabis. That would be 2014, or rather, I believe the vote would have happened in 2013, and so the program was rolled out officially in 2014. I believe I have that right. Not 100%, I may be incorrect. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. You can always leave a comment by clicking on that link in the show description notes, question or comment, and go ahead and tell me what I've screwed up. I love to hear that. But either way, the Preparing Regulators Effectively for a Post-Prohibition Adult Use Regulated Environment Act, or the Prepare Act, which is how I'll be identifying that going forward. That was a mouthful to get through the full name there. But the Prepare Act would direct the Attorney General to create a commission charged with making recommendations on a regulatory system for cannabis, which models what's currently in place for alcohol. Thank you, Senator John Hickenlooper, for submitting this, filing this officially on Thursday of this week. This is something that has been needed for a while. This is something that I don't know if in its current iteration it's going to pass. This is the first bill that's been filed by anybody that is meant to sort of get the country ready in any serious way for federal cannabis legalization. The other ones were safe banking. There have been research bills. There have been state, obviously sponsored legalization acts. But in terms of a federal answer to like ending the prohibition of cannabis, there's been nothing like this even submitted. This is a first step to getting to a place, to getting to a bill that a sitting president would eventually sign, whoever that might be. And then to get a structure in place to regulate it similarly to how we do alcohol. This is exactly what I have been saying we needed since the beginning of this show, and it's exactly what we should be doing. It's not at all difficult to look at the way that we have normally normalized alcohol use in our society, and it's not hard to use that as a sort of route or pre-planned, map to get our system ready for cannabis either. Yes, cannabis is different than alcohol, but the way that we have normalized alcohol in our society, the way that we have laws and an understanding of how it affects us individually, how alcohol getting into our bloodstream impairs certain functions, and how a certain level of that BAC, that blood alcohol concentration, what equates to that, and then exactly what that's doing to you. And we have that worked into our very laws, where if you blow into a breathalyzer and you're driving and you get above 0.08, you get charged with a crime. What matters here is that there exists a way to normalize and police and have policies to allow cannabis use in our day-to-day civilized society. There is an absolute way, there is a pathway to normalize cannabis use in our society, and we see it with alcohol. We ended a prohibition that we created on alcohol. We ended that, and then we found ways to normalize it in our society. We had rules. There are dry counties. There are places still. You can't buy it after a certain time, can't buy it on certain days of the week, can't buy it before certain times of the day. There are rules and stipulations in different places as to where you can buy alcohol or when and how much. Cannabis, we can follow a similar pathway to normalizing cannabis as well. And Senator Hickenlooper's bill, which has now been filed officially this week, which is the PREPARE Act, again, preparing regulators effectively for a post-prohibition adult use regulated environment act. The PREPARE Act is exactly what it says. It's getting the country ready for a post-prohibition cannabis society. What does it look like if every state, if America at large accepted cannabis use the way we have alcohol, and at one time we did cigarettes and all of that? What do those rules look like? How much can you buy? Is the interstate commerce nature of it so much and complicated to sift through? But the fact is, it's doable. And we now finally have some official legislation filed for our elected officials to consider in our Congress, moving through everything. That is incredibly exciting, and it's a day for celebration, especially now that we have President Biden having signed the research bill there. That, to me, these two things in conjunction, this has been a massive week. And as we head into the holiday season, as we head into 2023, this is something to be thankful for. Even though, again, as I've said on the show many times, and as we all know, there's a lot to change. And the social equity part of this is a crucial part. It's got to be front and center. We had almost 100 years where all these people, mostly black and brown people, who got put into jail cells for selling and using this plant that we are slowly normalizing into our society, which, and I stress this, is a great thing. This is the kind of exciting developments that we can look forward to more and more in the days and years ahead. And there will come a day, I feel it now more than ever, there's going to come a day, and it will be soon, when cannabis is going to be federally legal, and we are going to be witnessing the establishment of interstate commerce, and we're bearing witness right now to something that is going to change the very foundations of our society. And I very much look forward to it, and I look forward to continuing to share these developments with you on the Cannabis Man podcast. I'll be back again next week with another interview and a full episode, so thank you so much for tuning in. Bye-bye. Cannabis Man is an original production of myself, Don Kleppen. Original theme music by Yusu Kim, aka Goodson. Other music by Pat Perez, and logo designed by Vorbroker Media. If you like the show, please rate, review, subscribe, and share whenever you can.